I think I was the impetus for them establishing a curriculum for the jazz vocalist. But they didn't really know what they were doing yet, so they just threw me in there and put me in the class with all these great jazz musicians who were all, applying their craft and
Uh-huh.
developing. And by the time I left, they had established, I think it was the year after I left, actually, they created this curriculum. So I was a jazz major, but my instrument was voice. So that's kind of the way I, continued for the next 4 years at the University of Miami. So here it is. I'm hearing, learning about the John Coltrane's, and I'm learning about the Miles Davises, and I'm hearing about, this is what I'm getting. I'm
Yeah.
not getting any information about the singer at all. Let me tell you. So it was my friend and the bass player in the band that I was in at the time who had a cassette of Ella Fitzgerald.
Yes.
I'm like, who is that?
Yeah.
Who is that? So when I heard Ella Fitzgerald, that was the long and short of all that I'm telling you. The beginning, the middle, then the end. And the great modern ancestor that she is.
Yes.
So that started me into this whole thing of that's what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Ella came first. And somewhere along the way, I discovered Billie Holiday.
Mm.
So by the time I got to New York, I had my repertoire together. I was singing some Stevie Wonder, I was singing some Ella, I was singing whatever, just to get the gig done. 6 nights a week, three
Wow.
sets a night, year in, year out, year in, year out. I tell you, I'm not exaggerating. That's my life.
Oh
It
my.
was 6 nights a week, 3 sets a night. Get up 8:30 class, theory class. Finish school at 4 a.m. 4 p.m. Turn around and get to the gig. So those early years were hugely important because back then there were no competitions. You couldn't enter the blah 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 competition
Mm-hmm.
to get yourself going. We had a phase before my time. I'm a child of the 60s really and 70s.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there was, the Apollo stuff had already ended. The amateur thing at the Apollo. You couldn't do that in the 70s. It wasn't happening in the 70s in New York. That was over, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So you
Mm-hmm.
had to get, you had to put your, feet to the pavement and go out there and find a gig.
Yes.
So that was the way I developed. So I think that musical training was so helpful because I was able to, first off, learn a lot of music on my own, independent of the bandstand. But then I get on the bandstand with some of the world's greatest artists in New York.
Yes.
So I had this wonderful balance and duality going on. And the whole thing of the writer, the composer, was never really what I thought would happen. I was Ella Fitzgerald's granddaughter, as far as I was
Yes.
concerned. I
Yes.
adopted her, as my jazz grandmother. And but there was a reason for it, and I didn't really know what the reason was it, but I knew that at some point, because so many of those great artists were still alive, and I was a youngster, when I would hear Betty Carter
Mm-hmm.
perform, my brother played with her for years, so I got to see her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And just to hear Carmen McRae and to go and check out all, and to see Ella on the bandstand and to see Nina Simone, my God, I'm thinking, well, what, where do I fit? I'm this little, youngster, uh, looking for my place in a pantheon of great vocalists.
Yes.
So I didn't really know how I was going to be able to sustain a career covering the songs that were already being covered by all these great singers.
Mm-hmm.
So from the very first demo tape that I brought to Columbia Records back in the late 70s, I inserted my original compositions. I was like, maybe they'll just hear me. This
Mm-hmm.
won't be the version of something that they already know, and then I'll be compared to that, and then they'll be able to determine if I'm really worthy of anything of their interest based on my cover of a cover of a cover. So I began to insert my original compositions and which started with a course that I had to take as a jazz major. I had to take composition. I had to take arranging. I had to take theory. I had to take these things in order to pass, to get the degree. But did I ever think that I would apply them? The composition, I just never really saw associated that with becoming this known for being a jazz singer, because it was all about improvisation. It was all about being able to stand toe to toe in the context of a performance, when somebody finishes their horn solo or their drum solo or their piano solo, there I'd be, with my solo.
Yes.
And then I realized there was a lot of creativity going into those on the spot, spontaneous improvisation that I could apply similarly to my composition.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, let me take some of this creative thought and make something up.
Yes. Yes.
So 40 something, almost 50 years later, here I am, and you're talking about soul to soul, which I think is entirely original music, with the exception of What's Your Story, Morning Glory, paying homage to another great modern ancestor, Mary Lou Williams.
Yes.
And and
Yes.
the thing I also love about